Good mythical afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Ayala with another video for you. I am presenting today your introduction to Unit 11, Reform Movements of the 1800s, and Vocabulary for 11.1, Religion Sparks Reform. So, a few things to make sure that you know what you need to do. So you need a new sheet of paper to set up the information for Unit 11, like we traditionally do every day at the beginning of every unit in my classroom. Like for example, title it the Reform Movement. You will also need a sticky note or tab so that you can keep yourself organized, and of course something to write with. Please write down the vocabulary and standards as they show up. Personally, I would pause the video. I would pause the video and listen to it as I review, and then answer the questions as they appear on Edpuzzle. Please don't forget to answer the questions at the end as well. And as always, don't forget to be awesome. So, a few introduction pieces. So first thing, at the top of your paper, please write this. You're going to write an item that says Unit 11, Reform Movements of the 1800s from 1790 CE to 1860 CE. Yes, I do understand that it's slightly outside by about a decade, 1790, but this is the best way to look at this content. So we got to look a little bit backwards and a little bit more forward from where we are now. Right below that, please write these standards. Examine the aspects of slave culture, including plantation life, resistance efforts, and the role of the slave's spiritual system. We're going to be going a little bit further into the ideas behind slavery, how slave culture begins to develop in ways that they try to keep themselves as human beings as they are literally being treated as pieces of property. Examine the causes, course, and consequences of the women's suffrage movement at this time. Susan B. Anthony, the Declaration of Rights and Sentiments. And examine the causes, course, and consequences of literature movements like Transcendentalism, significant to this era of history. So we're going to be looking at a little bit of some literature and some poetry and different philosophical ways to look at life. And then please place your sticky note on the top or right hand side to create a tab to help yourself with organizing your work. So as a reminder, it should look something like this when you're done. So this is just what I have. So you have at the top your items that you're not, the name of the unit. You have your standards, 1, 2, 3, major standards, and then your vocab. That way we can keep this all nice and organized and we don't get confused and lost. It's really the whole purpose of it. So, back to this part. So, at the moment, I would pause and fill this out and then continue when you are ready. All right, now that we're all here, again, let's continue. So this is the vocabulary for 11.1, Religion Sparks Reform. So please be aware, anytime I speak about religion in this course, I'm here to teach you about how religion has changed American and even world societies. I'm not here to teach you about which one is better, which one is worse, how much or how little religion you should have in your own particular life. That is up to you, your family, and any other religious advisors. So if you're confused about any of that, please speak to someone other than the guy with the microphone. Thank you. So now that that's out of the way, let's continue. So the first thing is the Second Great Awakening. So this is a religious movement in the 1790s in which the idea of individual responsibility and the betterment of society was the key to salvation. And remember, the majority of Americans at this time were Protestant Christians. So, and this is a little bit of a change from the First Great Awakening. Because if you remember the First Great Awakening during the colonial period, it really kind of focuses on you must go to church, you must read the Bible to be able to be saved. While based on the Protestant Christian doctrines at that time. The Second Great Awakening, the American cultural idea is added, that it's individual responsibility and the betterment of society, of you choose based on your actions here at home, where you may or may not go in the afterlife based off of Protestant Christianity again. So, this is a revival, a reawakening of that religious passion and fervor. And this one really, really, really focuses on individualism. The idea that you don't have to be extremely religious to go to heaven based off the Christian Protestant ideals at this time, that it's based on your choices as an individual. Kind of interesting. Then we have transcendentalism. Easiest way to say this word is to split it apart. Transcendentalism. It's a pretty large word. So this is a philosophical and literary movement that emphasizes a simple life, truth in nature, personal emotion, and your imagination. So this is the idea that you want to simplify your life to the things that are the most important to you. Anything else that gets in your way of becoming a better individual or to help society should be removed. Anything that brings increased stress that you don't need to deal with. Like, let's say drama on social media. That is undue stress that you put on yourself because you are on social media. You don't have to be on social media. You can ignore that information. It's not a requirement in today's society. Do a lot of people do it? Yes. But if you get off of that idea and you focus on simplifying things, your life will be a little bit easier. The truth found in nature. If you see things in nature that human society is likely to mirror it. I mean, what happens if you don't go out and do your job as an animal? Let's say you're a predator, you go out and hunt. What happens? You starve to death. If you are, a grazing animal and you refuse to get up to eat food or hay or, grass, what happens? You don't survive. Just like in our society, you don't get up, you don't go to work, you don't do what you need to do to be successful, your life becomes more and more difficult. Your personal emotions are important in this, and so is your use of the imagination, because if you can imagine it, you can create it. And this comes hand in hand with ideas of a utopian community, which is an idea of a perfect community or utopia. And because there is no such thing really as perfection across the board, there's no really objective viewpoint to look at that. When you look at a utopian community, they can't exist. Though there are some at this time, like the Shakers, which were a religious group, which were very big into adopting children into their society and very big on freeing slaves, and to try not to procreate. A little odd, but it was their belief. Then, two other ideas. We have civil disobedience, which means to peacefully protest laws that people feel are not just, that they feel are incorrect or wrong. Just because it is lawful does not mean that it's morally correct. Take the idea of slavery. It was lawful for people in the United States in the South to own other individual people. Yeah, it was legal. But it was not moral. It was not ethical. And that's something we've got to understand. I mean, if you go back to the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s, you had sit-ins, people who would sit at a counter trying to integrate these white-only establishments in the South. And they were beaten, they were bruised, but it was legal to do all of that. But it doesn't mean it is moral. And then you have Unitarianism. Oh, that's a really hard one. This is a philosophy that emphasizes reason and appeals to the conscience as the path to perfection. The more that you reason and you think out your ideas, the more that you look to your conscience on what is right and wrong, the closer you would become to become a perfect individual. And as always, don't forget to be awesome.